It's not lumpia.
Oh man, that's that lumpia.
Like,
Sorry, I know.
If it was any other egg roll, you might be able to say lumpia, but it's king egg roll.
Yeah,
so
no.
it's its own.
It's very.
Oh, do you need water?
Nah.
You sure?
Good. Yeah.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah, yeah, beer would be greater. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. So,
You
good?
Yeah,
I think so.
Let's go.
Go ahead. All right, start. Did you already have it set up? Oh, okay. Oh, we're off.
The music turned off. I just started recording.
Right on. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out to Japantown, to the gallery. Thank you for hosting us tonight. We're proud to really have and celebrate our friend Abe Menor, or Abe, or whatever you want to call him. He's often incognito to many, but he'll show up for everybody in the community. My name is Danny Le. I'm a librarian by profession, but in the San Jose scene, I love investing in the people, the culture, the creators of South Bay, as well as uplift them in what they do for us is to inspire us. And I think, Abe, you do that for us in many different ways. I know this is an hour long, so we'll do as much as to condense what you do, your inspirations, as well as leave it some time for a Q&A from the audience. But let's just, I've known you for 2 decades, I don't remember when we became friends, but I think I've always seen you at the club or a function, and I knew you were somebody's friend. It was a bunch of Filipinos, so somebody's cousin. However, what gravitated is because you were a community person. I think you always framed yourself as that first and foremost before you mentioned yourself as a artist. So tell me a little bit about your life as a community-centric artist who often uplifts whether it's street art or known as street art or grassroots movements and the mission that brings to the community. Tell me a little bit what drives you to invest your time in these pockets.
Yeah. First off, thank you, Danny, for being here and hosting and moderating this interview, and thank you to No Future Gallery for hosting, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. So just kind of like in a snapshot, I've been involved with community organizing, community movement for over 2 decades. Really focus on helping people, whether it's young people all the way to the elderly and everything in between. And my outlook in life with art is make sure you can create something that's going to feed the people. Not just feed the people creatively, but also feed the people with information, serve the people with purpose. And I think that's definitely how the two worlds intersect as far as community organizing and art. And that's just something that it's just a life mission, it's my calling.
So with that, what I've always noticed with you is that your hands are always filled with some sort of camera, documenting, and that's one of the first things I noticed about you, that you were taking snaps of moments, groups, and people that might have been just background, but you took your time to talk to them, encapsulate the vision how they are presented, how they stand in their story, and you memorialize them in that moment. But with that work, what made photography, your medium of choice? At least in terms of why would you go, hunting for these scenes, which brought you from either San Jose or far off to other states and countries,
Yeah, I'll try to sum up my answer in 3 points to give a little bit of a background. So I grew up in the 90s. Well, no, I didn't grow up in the 90s. I grew up in the 80s, but the 90s.
I was about to say.
90s is where I started to really get introduced into like hip hop culture, graffiti culture. And for those who are familiar with graffiti culture, you're always snapping the work that you did or taking pictures of the work of others, because it was temporary. So you wanted to make sure you had the pictures, the flicks to see afterwards, or to maybe trade with others. And so that's kind of how the first step in documenting, or my understanding of documenting, came into play, and how it was important at that time. Second point, I really fell in love with photography when I started documenting Filipino World War II veterans, literally down the street on 6th and Empire, where a lot of the old timers would play cards, cut hair, and just have community time or family time. And I had the opportunity to meet these old timers, as we would call them, and learn about their struggle and their strive for, equity and as far as benefits as being World War II veterans. So I was documenting a lot of that, learning their story. And then that's when I really understood the importance of photography, and how telling stories or sharing stories is important, but also documenting our own history. Because at the time, I would research and I'm like, what other photographers are out there doing it? And every time, this is like before internet was really strong, and before you could go and like just Google it or something. And I would go to the library, and the only photographers that I could find that was doing documentary photography were white people, or white men. And I just didn't understand that. Is there no black and brown photographers? What's going on? Or if there was, it was few and far. And so I saw the importance of someone in the community, someone who looked like these people that I was taking pictures of. It's an important role for us to be able to document and tell our own stories.
I think I found what you're saying is interesting is, and forgive me if I'm wrong, a lot of times we don't think, especially our space and place in the South Bay, to be that change or to be that person, because sometimes we have the stigma of being from here and not having the elevated aptitude like we're from SF or or Oakland or whatever, right? But it's almost an underdog story. It's like, hey, if it's not me, then who can it be, right? The challenge, not just the general overview of the global view of what photojournalistic essay kind of work looks like, but also as a brown person who's like, there's not enough of us.
Right.
So it has to be somebody, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it's true. It's on point. And also, people come and go in our communities and appropriate us, our practices, come and document us because it's like cool, or they're have a voyeuristic feel. And I think it's important for us to make sure we take care of our own narrative, right? And it's important for us to make sure to say, no, we are also the groundskeepers, the upholders, the supporters of our community and those that existed before us.
Right. As for yourself now, with in terms of hip hop culture, music collecting has been a part of that as well. When you started releasing, and we're talking about going into publication, first inklings of before these books came out, I think I've collected many of your zines, and in the artifacts and the formation of zine culture, especially photo zines, is very important to any creative who needs to put something out real quick. Can you tell us why you started putting out zines? Because you're very prolific, and I think at one point you had people do a year-long subscription to your zines to put it out, and it's like, if people don't get on that list, it's done. I tried and I slept on that. And then you joked before with me that you've gone into bookstores and found your zine up-priced for like way more than it should be. Yeah. So I think that power of the printed medium is very important. But for yourself, what makes making zines something that you gravitate towards?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I think the tangible is very important. especially in this digital age, right? Things come and go real quick. And for me, I grew up with baseball cards, comic books, actual photos that you have to go get at like Walgreens or Wolf Camera or whatever, right? And you have those memories. And with the zines, I want people to be able to still have that human connection, right? That's the most important thing, is be able to have something in your hand and say, whoa, someone created this. And forever, for however long it exists, like you have that, you have that piece. The second piece, which gets a little bit deeper, is you actually have something of me, right? You could go online, Instagram or whatever, and click on a picture of mine or whatever, download it to your computer, but you don't actually have a piece of me that I can say, I produced this, right? So I think that's the importance of the zines. The other thing is, as a collector, if I make 10 zines and you ain't on that hype, I'm sorry. Wait for the next one. But that person is gonna have something that's just specific and special to that moment that I created it. So I think that's like the importance of the zines. And then the other thing is, it's a form of communication, right? It's stories. And I think that's important because when I say we, us Black and brown people, we're oral, right? We tell stories like this. And with a zine, I just figured out the way of being able to put it through a medium to say, here, let me continue to pass this on.
One of the striking thing about your subject matter, whether it's from your zines or even to this series of books, with Digging Sound Collectives, you naturally capture and want to capture people in the best element, whether it's a portrait and they pause for that moment for you, or they allow themselves, catch it in the action, But the beautiful thing is that they're inviting themselves to let you take a photo of them. I've seen you take many photos through protests, marches, concerts, people just kicking it, acting dope, foolish, whatever, right? In those moments and times, it's the rawness of our living humanity, whether it's from youth culture or community connection, right? So how do you approach letting people, expose themselves, as openly as they wish to, and building that trust for them? Because if nobody knows you, you're all snapping away, there could be any reason that you'd be producing these photos, but how do you engage with those people to let them open themselves up to you?
Yeah, that's a good question, JD.
You share shots, right? Just drinks.
Yeah, there's those moments for sure when you share spirits, right?
Yeah.
I think it's being genuine, man, and having a conversation really, and just letting people know, like, this is my intention, here's the goal. I don't know, like, I think over the course of time and my experience in history, I can't put it into words of like how I am able to connect and communicate with others and other human beings, but I think over time, I just have developed a spirit, right? That allows people to kind of see like, okay, this person's cool.
Right.
And his intentions are for the good. It's hard, but I'm honest. I like to, if I'm shooting someone for the first time and they don't know or they don't trust who I am, I try to give them all the information on front page, because it's like, I don't want you to ever question. I want you to be feeling comfortable, because you're inviting me into sacred spaces. Spaces that maybe their partners, husbands, wives, children have never even been into, or friends have never been into, and I gotta respect that. And so I always approach everything with respect and acknowledgement.
With that, we'll just go into let's talk about the series. You know, you're on your third one. And congratulations, he's nearly sold out of the book already, you know. So there's still one more show, you know, you have that stacks, and a small stack of books left. So the amazing thing is, this is a third volume of you taking photos of collectors, music collectors. And, you know, I've been privileged, you know, I was in one of the volumes, you know, you asked me, which I never knew why you asked me, but I think what makes your photo book about record collectors, I've seen many, is that you not only have prolific folks that people might recognize, but you take photos of your friends, including with other collectors from all around. And then you go on your own dime to go photograph these people in their homes.
Yeah.
What made you want to do this? First and foremost, because it's no longer a zine. Now you're doing, you know, perfect bound books, you know?
Yeah.
What made you want to kick this off?
Shit, it was from a zine. It was from a zine. I see Acro, I see Vig. Definitely first inspirations. You know, there would be kickbacks, you know, at their spots, and, you know, meeting other photographers. And I was just the guy with the camera that loves the music that they're playing, and I would just snap shots. I was there, like that's what I do, right? Take pictures. And so it started with that zine. I can't even remember the name of the zine. Oh my gosh! But from that zine, I only made enough to give to the people who were in that zine, just because I was like, shit, I just want to make something. And, you know, hearing just the feedback was like, dang, well, what else can I do? So the first step was like, maybe make another zine. But we're in the Bay Area, we're in California. The folks from the first zine was a lot of just folks who were collecting soul, sweet soul, funk. And I was like, there's so many genres that this vinyl, I mean, period, vinyl culture is genres of music. And we're in the Bay Area. I know I have a list of people, so I started with a list of 15 people, and then the first book turned into 47 collectors. Not expecting that was gonna happen. And of course, it was from my own dime, and it was my love as a passion project. And what I made from that, which was little profit when you think about Ubers, pizzas, and beer, and flights. I said, well, I still have a list that I wasn't able to capture, especially of homies that I wanted to shoot. So I said, well, let's just do a second one. Put all the money from the first one in, dropped a little bit more, made the list of the homies that I didn't get to shoot, some of the recommendations from the first one. And I was thinking, okay, well, let's keep it small, keep it light, affordable. That didn't work. And it was during the time of COVID. The project had to take a stop because we came to a point where we didn't know what the heck was going on. And what I learned from the whole situation of COVID is that we're yearning for one, human contact, and for creative and artistic fields, because we needed to be able to escape and be able to tap into something that was going to bring us joy. And so when I thought about stopping the project, because I was really like, shoot, who cares about record collect? Well, actually, no. We still record collecting was going on strong during that time. But who cares about thinking about anything else except your family, your health, and safety? And then I was like, nah, but as an artist, I need my own sanity. And I know people appreciate art because it helps them with their sanity. And so that's how I continued the second one. Second one was supposed to be done, Danny. I was like, this is getting too much. But I'm like, how are you gonna have 1, 2, and not the 3? And that's kind of how the third one, I was like, nah, I need to accept it, that it's meant to be, and the universe is calling for me to do a third one. And so here we go, the third one.
I mean, it's amazing because to see you from your first book to the second to this third one, you've upped not only your print count, the page count, but also the demand. The fact that you're here at maybe almost circulating 300 for this third one and almost all gone, shows that what we're speaking to as people who collect, people who enjoy tangible things. There's nothing that beats holding on to something that's can be shelved, can be cataloged, can be pulled at any point in time of our lives and felt differently than that moment we ingested it for that first time. It will be different 10 years, 20 years, what have you. It will be different and we'll see something new. That speaks to just like why the passion and love to create it, which is probably a headache sometimes. You're like, layout, adding more taglines. You had more words in this one. I was like, oh, I can read this one now. Even though it's one sentence, I can read it now. You know, there's more feeling, and it inspires us to watch you in your journey. You know, to also inspire us to what can I do? What can I make? I think it wasn't for you. I would have made my first zine in forever. I think that inspiration caused me to say, why not? Why can't I do this as well? You know,
Right.
I have the means. You know, I'm not late at night at Kinko's anymore, but you know, I have a work job printer. You know, so you know, it's all good.
To test.
Yeah.
Other
But-
zines and
other- yeah.
that work.
Yeah.
Research.
Yeah, research. Thank you. But as we're, you know, for yourself, even though the end goal is to inspire and share your work, what does creating these books mean to you for the people who are purchasing it, for the people they're ingesting and being inspired of it? Is that your point, one of your main points to create this, besides for yourself?
Yeah, shit, I love music, man. I love music. I collect records. And that's first and foremost the connection to this project. Like imagine I've shot over 200 vinyl collectors and I get to listen to the best music in the world. And at the same time, hear the stories of why the music is important to them. And so that's first and foremost. I'm a little stingy on that sense. I'm like, damn, this gives me energy. This gives me life. Which is the inspiration to like share these stories. And it's visual stories. I mean, the third one has more words, like you said, but it's visual stories. And you know, for record collectors or not, when you look at a page or you look at a collector and you're like you're flipping through, you could easily try to figure out what is going on here, right? What does this all mean? Or I'm wondering what the conversation is here. What was the feeling there? Or like, you know, shit, what was the question?
The question. No, you hit it on the nose. And what I really would love to know, probably for us, is that when you're having, because for us,
Sorry,
we get one photo, maybe two.
Yeah.
But in that time, you're spending an hour, maybe 2 hours with them,
Yeah.
and you're hearing the stories.
Yeah.
You're hearing them, you're watching them flip through their favorites until you capture a lot. Probably just choosing one.
Yeah.
Maybe what was some of your favorite trips or people that you've interviewed? And I'm sure you got a lot, but
From the third
yeah,
one?
for all.
Or all?
Yeah.
Okay. There's time. I was just making sure.
Yeah, we got time.
Because Illicano could tell a whole
Yes.
generation of stories. Okay. Shoot. Okay, so let's see. First book, I'm gonna give like crazy high points. First book, Solomon from South Africa. Met him out there digging, and we were digging in one of the largest collections that I've ever been in.
In South Africa.
In Johannesburg,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah. And this was like rat infested, cat infested, old infested, like all the major diggers and collectors have been through that spot. But Solomon collects American rock. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's from Soweto, and he was like, yeah, I just like this music. And the funny thing was, I was like, well, would you be interested in shooting? And he didn't understand the whole concept of the book. It was just confused. I was like, all right. Because I was asking him, would you mind taking me to your home? And he was like, what the heck? But he was like, well, let's take some pictures here. And I was like, okay. And that was one memorable experience because I didn't expect to shoot out there for the project. And that's the first time when I was like, dang, this could be powerful. Because I was in Johannesburg for the first time, a place that I wanted to travel all my life, in a dang antique collectibles shop, talking about records with someone who loved American rock, and yeah, it was just a moment. But I'm not gonna go too much into it. But yeah, so that was one. Let me see. Let me pull a second one. This is from the second book, Shooting Peanut Butter Wolf. I went to high school with Peanut Butter Wolf's younger brother, and Peanut Butter Wolf at the time of high school was the hometown hero, because he had like Dave Dove, Persevere, who are homies that I grew up with on the label. And at that point, when I was shooting him, it took a whole hour. So I'm gonna give you this quick story. My boy John from San Jose lives in LA. I hook up with him every time, check in when I go to LA at the Gold Line. We're at the bar, having a drink, talking about the book project. He's like, how come you don't want to shoot Peanut Butter Wolf? And I'm all, I mean, I would love to, but that dude's like, it's far reach, busy, and he's all, well, hold on, 10:30 at night, let's go. Go where? He's like, you got your camera? I'm like, yeah. He's like, let's go. He says his real name. He said, come through. We go to the house. He's shuffling through all these records that he just came up on. And I'm sitting there, just kind of stuck, SOS, But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I do this all day. So he's talking, we're talking, and then I start bringing up San Jose, and he's like, oh shoot, you're from San Jose.
San Jose?
Yeah. And then boom, we start talking. I only bring it up because he has this Metro that his cover is on. I'm sitting right there, and I'm like, so I bring it up, we start talking, and then he's like, where did you grow up? And I told him in the neighborhood, and then he tripped out, and then we started hanging out and drinking, and then he asked, aren't you here to take pictures? And I'm all, yeah, this is an hour into it. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, shit, what's up? He starts pulling out all these Bay records, and I'm just shooting, and it was just a great moment because I think we're more connected on the fact that we're from San Jose, the hometown, than the actual project. So that's a shot. Let's see, third book. Let me think. Third book. Shit. I got Skeem Richards. Famous.
Yep.
Famous DJ from the 80s. B-boy. Straight up. Down with the elements. And when you have heroes or people that you look up to, you're like, dang. And this is when I didn't hesitate or hold back, and I was like, I'm gonna be in DC. Let me just hit him up. Let me see. And I hit him up, and he's like, oh man, I'm a fan. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, I love what you're doing. And I'm like, oh shit, can we get a shoot in? Sorry, children. Can we get a shoot in? And he was like, yeah. And we ended up spending a day with each other, not really shooting, and just hanging out, talking about VHS kung fu tapes, and collecting toys, and just fun stuff. And I'm like, damn, sometimes you put things up here, and then you realize, whoa, we're all humans, and it's cool just to kick it.
Right.
I'm gonna give you those 3 stories. I mean, there's so many stories, Danny, that have influenced me, have impacted my life. I've been to shoots where I get 3 pictures because we're partying so hard.
I've been with you.
I end up, you know, taking family portraits because they're like, can you take a picture of me and my daughter, or me and the family? Going to backyard spots and during COVID, like not knowing how far we should like be from each other, but doing a shoot, you know, intimate moments like that, or moments, you know, what's crazy is when you have people sharing their life stories and you're like, dang, I wasn't really thinking I was gonna walk into this, but really appreciating them to like trust to share their stories and the connection to the music, you know, or to the movement. So yeah.
I think, you know, you touched it as, you know, and eloquently as you can with those 3 points, as many as you other incidences that you do, is that you naturally want to know the story. And that was before the photos. It was about connecting and finding a connection, and that usually was through the music, you know, or talking about San Jose, or finding out they are a fan of you because you did the work, you know, and that you were genuine with the work, you know, like, you know, you weren't no buster who was just trying to, you know, catch a flick and show off, right? I think that's a great lesson for a lot of us who, you know, have a problem with being an artist, growing as an artist, continuing as an artist, not being defeated by comparison or the lack of inspiration, finding a wall, you know, closing in on us because of life, you know, family, what have you, right? But you make that part of your life. You made part of your art by telling stories, first and foremost. Just so happens that you're gonna capture a flick in that. But you made a connection, a friend, you know, future collaborator, or somebody to call up and drink and listen to music with, right? Now, you know, this has been 3 volumes, you know, great success for a independent artist self-publishing something out of a passion. What's beyond that? I mean, you can say there's more projects. I'm sure that has opened up for you, but what do you have in store that you think, you know, you can possibly share with us that you'd like to share, or even beyond the mediums that you've used? What else? Because before this books, you've done some great art shows. I don't know how you did it. Those photo art shows that you did at Empire and a bunch of other places like here, that I don't know how you broke out 500 photos and just framed them all yourself. And I was like, wait, are you crazy? And he is. You are crazy, you know, but in a good way. So what's next, you know? Spring, summer's coming, you know?
What's not next?
Oh, deep.
Well, I mean, for this project, I have a passion to shoot vinyl collectors and continue learning about the music. Like I think I'm not gonna stop. Like even if there's no end goal for a project,
right?
I don't think I'm gonna stop the line of, you know, taking flicks of homies or people who are recommended, or, you know, people who want to be shot. Like, you know, I'm gonna tell people. I tell people every week, if we shoot, there might not be a book project that comes out of it. Something might come out of it down the line, but I would just love to shoot to document. So that way I can hopefully one day point share your story in regards to record collecting. So I think that's not gonna stop. But for everyone here and those who don't know yet, there's gonna be a 4th.
Yes. Yes.
I've been shooting since I stopped the production or the collection for this 3rd one. I've been shooting since, and collecting photographs and making photographs. And I'm not gonna, you'll have to wait to see what the 4th is. But it's gonna be dope. I can tell you this, the 4th is gonna have everyone from 1, 2, and 3
dope
in it. And these are the photos that I don't share, that I keep to myself, that I'm selfish with, because I'm like, in 10 years, what am I gonna do with, you know, the collection that people haven't seen? But yeah, I can tell you that the 4th is gonna be that. I just gotta look for like investors, so then that way I can possibly do a coffee table book, a hardback, you know.
Yes.
Because I think that's where the level of where all these folks need to be at. I didn't say something earlier, and I want to make sure I say it.
Sure, say it.
This project, first and foremost, started so I can document the homies, right? Because I want to be able to be the one to say, yeah, these are my friends that I was able to capture. The other thing is about the importance about this project, from learning from the greats and people who are mentors, is that I never, because the thing is, when you start to progress and when you start to gain traction and people start, to your point earlier, people start to like know the project, it's easy to take your hat off and say, I'm gonna go this direction because this is where it's leading me. And the number one thing about this project that I've learned from is you're always gonna have humility. And because this person only has 100 records versus this person who has 10,000, 50,000 records, doesn't mean that the love for music and vinyl is different. The experience is different for sure. I'm not gonna negate that. I'm not gonna take that away from someone that's been collecting for 30 plus years, that has been putting in the work. I'm not gonna take that away from them. But I'm also not gonna take away someone who is starting, who's the 14-year-old that inherited their parents' collection or their parents put them on, because I don't know where they're gonna be at in 10, 15 years, right? And so I think that's the importance of this project too, is that I'm working with anyone that's a blue-collar worker, that's someone that's a practitioner in the field of collecting and digging, to the person who's like, I don't care what anyone thinks, and maybe this project will put light and exposure, but I really don't care because I collect records because I collect records. So I just want to kind of share that and put that to point, because that's what's, I think, different about this project and why I really strive to connect with the people that I connect with.
You really make it a point that the platform is to make it the equity of being a person who loves music and in the medium of record collecting. And that's very powerful, because that's what I like about your book compared to many that are out there who just show probably the most famous people or whatever. You know, that's fair for those books, but this is probably more natural to me because this is everyday people. This is my friends, this is people I want to be friends with and I relate to. I think there's tens and hundreds of thousands of people just like that, who want to see themselves in that. Now we're just probably gonna open up for Q&A. Anybody, please, if you have any burning questions to ask Abe, now's the time. But while you have your questions ready and locked and loaded, I'll just ask one question. How did you make these books? And maybe in your way, of your, the tools you use, because I think you don't use some complex tools that anybody can actually have these already on their computer ready to go. So what do you use for maybe even layouts or what have you?
Yeah, no, I use my people. Anytime I put a project together, unless I'm doing it in-house, if I can put my people on to help me out, I'm gonna put my people on. I want my people to be part of the process and the lifespan of these projects. And so, like, Doc from Deaf Projects, he's my printer, and I've worked with him over the years, not just on this project but other projects. And so I make sure I put him on and go to him instead of someone that I don't know, right? So that way the energy is generated, right, within the community. I use AD, After Dark Adrian, to do the layout, because I've been working with him for years and I trust him. So, to your point, I know what you're talking about. Like my homemade zines, yeah, I use a simple layout, nothing complex. But for this project, like I work with my trust that could produce as great of work as this as far as the final project.
So that's good to know from your zines, which anybody can produce at home. You know, if you got just the time, creativity, a scanner, you know, just do it.
Yeah.
So anybody can do this,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Or to use something more with care, we use our community. We have, you know, grab those who are already ready to go and we can trust to produce.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like that. I like that a lot. You know, it just shows that the entrance is, there's nothing, the threshold's not that crazy. You can do this. You can do this too, y'all.
Well, I think that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
When I was coming up and trying to really find photographers who maybe look like me or have the same experience, I wasn't finding it. And so I want to be able to also be an inspiration for others, like maybe yourself or the next generation, to be like, holy shoot, this last name isn't Scott Johnson, or well, Johnson's kind of Scott, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know.
But this is Menor. What is like? Sounds ethnic, maybe.
Yeah.
And
Sounds sexy.
yeah. Or you Google like here's a brown guy with hashtags, like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I think that's important for us to see ourselves doing the work that we so support and love. So.
We're seeing a lot more in the new generations, and we're seeing more of the names that last names we never get to see, or first names,
Yeah.
and people having to have to pronounce it and show respect. You know,
Yeah.
it's great. You
Yeah.
know, it's a great time. Sometimes jarring because it took so long for some of us to never see that, and now it's so out in the open. But I think that's due to the work of everybody doing it.
For sure.
Any questions from the audience? Yes, you in the back.
Is there a significance to having your photos in black and white instead of in color?
Yeah. I like, sorry, children. I like black and white. That's how I started. I first started with 35 millimeter film, and that's what we shot, was in black and white. And I am a fan of the darkroom, and that's how we printed, was in black and white. I think black and white gives you an opportunity to like really just hone in and zero in on the pictures. I think it also gives the opportunity for the creative part itself and brain to kind of imagine what is it like if you were to put your own color to it. But yeah, black and white it's that documentary feel with what comes out at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Saves on toner too, right?
Nah, it's more expensive.
Okay, never mind. Question over here.
Have you ever been in any sketchy situations on your way to any shoots?
Yes, good one.
Maybe like south side of Chicago?
Oh, yes, that's very specific.
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you, Steph.
You can change
Yeah,
the
names.
names.
It wasn't even a shoot. Eddie, Senor Eddie from Chicago, took me to the west side to go record digging. And I remember we were at a stop sign, and there was two houses. There's a house on each side. It's a stop sign. And for those who are not familiar, like that part of Chicago could be a little bit more challenging in regards to just safety. And I remember a guy from this house walking to the other side of the house, walking in front of us, you know, stopped and kind of looked at us, and I was like, yeah, we looked out of place maybe. And then, but you could see an imprint or something on the shirt, and I was just like, all right, Eddie, like let's go after this one. And he looked at us with a smirk, and I was just like, okay, well, whatever. And it was daytime, so I was like, hopefully if anything happens, like, shit, oh well, we're doing record digging. Johannesburg was crazy. So we were in the district of Mamboneng, and we were in like the gentrified hipster area where we were staying. And then the collectible spot is literally like a block down, but you're literally crossing the tracks, if you know what that means. And every time we were going to the spot, all eyes were on us, and the street would just get more condensed and packed. And there was only 3 of us. And I was just like, shit, you know, they're giving, sorry, Shona, they're giving us warnings like, don't take Ubers, don't walk, you know, this place and that place and the other. And you know, that fear gets all into your head, and you're like, I'm all holding my camera. And then you just gotta play it cool at the end of the day, because if you're gonna get robbed or something's gonna happen to you, like, that's just what it's meant to be. And also, you shouldn't probably be in these areas without being invited. Right? And that's another thing. Good question. I've learned that don't take advantage and don't forget your privilege when you're going to spaces that you might not be invited to. So yeah.
Good. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes.
I got a question. What were your first?
Oh, cute time! Sorry. I thought you were just some random person. I was trying to figure out.
But seriously, what was your first subject, or like what got you into it? Like, what was the first things you took pictures of that got you hyped, and it was like, oh shit, I'm into this now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, back in the day or whatever when you were.
Okay, so not necessarily.
Not every like certain people or you know, but what was the first subject that you shot that got you hyped into taking pictures? You know, like and doing it.
Yeah, as you can tell, he's a brown person because he's late. I gave that answer at the very beginning. I'm just playing. I'm playing. You know I'm playing. That's how we love each other. You know, we put each other on blast. No, I mentioned documenting in the '90s like graffiti culture. Pieces, right? Because as a graffiti artist, that was something that we had to like make sure we document, to have for ourselves, to pass on to others, and to also like capture, because it might not be there the next day or the day after, because it gets buffed. And then I also mentioned, you know, documenting my own community, Filipino World War II veterans, and really making that connection of just with, you know, how effed up and unjust the system is, because you have these men and women fighting for this country, and then they were denied their benefits.
Yeah.
And learning how they were in their 70s, 80s, 90s that were still fighting to just get equity, so they could get medical care, housing, food.
For sure.
And it's like, damn, you think about that when you're 19 years old and you're like learning that story, and then my grandfather's being World War II veterans, and I'm like, this is what is up with this country? So like those 2 points were like sparks.
Yeah.
And I think the continuing of just connecting with humans and documenting, I think that's just the thing that I'm like, that's my calling now.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for being late.
I was late because I missed the first part.
You owe me a shot, right?
Anybody else have questions? I know y'all have very questions. Oh, yes.
I just want to acknowledge you for being like, you are genuinely like, ever since like my teenage years, early 20s, have been like the steady documentarian of like culture in San Jose. And to see it like blow up to this, like, bro, you went to Johannesburg, you went to like all these spots in Chicago doing what you did here, and it's just like, you look at all the pictures and it's like so genuine, and like you can see how everybody's like, they're comfortable with you. None of this is forced. You know what I mean? You don't like, hey, take a picture. What's your illustrate? You know what I mean? Like, you can tell it's not like no bullcorn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just want to, I was thinking of a question, but I was like, man, I just want to acknowledge you for just stepping up and just like the fearlessness of putting yourself in those situations, so you could spread that word to everybody. And I'm like, it's dope to hear that it's expanding. Is there any like maybe like story or record collector that like might be your holy grail, your Shelby? Is there anything that you seek any, like, you know what I mean? Is there one like, damn, if I could just, this one would be really nice, you know what I mean? Or is there anything like that, or just, you know what I'm saying? Like, is there anything?
Yeah. You know, I think about that all the time, because I'm like, what happens when that question comes up?
What happens when the cup is full, right? Like, what's gonna make the fulfillment, like, you could just be chilling, like, I after this, you know what I mean? I will be happy to put the cover back on the camera.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is there like,
Shooting my mom's on Mother's Day, and she was the first book. She was the first book taking. Sorry, Mom.
beautiful.
Yeah, because I started collecting records because of her. And when she was about to donate her 2 crates to Salvation Army, and I was like, what the F? and not necessarily knowing what was in those crates. Like, I knew Ohio Players was in there. I knew Tower of Power was in there. I knew James Brown was in there. I knew Whitney Houston was in there, Sade. Like, I knew that type of music, but I didn't know to the extent of how impactful the music that I was listening to when I was a child, how it was gonna have an influence on me when I was into hip hop, right? And you know, it was Mother's Day, and I was working on this book, and I'm like, dang, what do I get Moms? Because Moms is like, I don't want nothing. And I'm like, dang, okay. You know, you're thinking about Rose's cards and whatever else in the other. I said, Mom, can you come back to the house, because I got all your records, but they're all mixed up, and I need you to go through them to make sure I can separate them. But I've always had her records separate from my own records. And so she came over to the house, didn't know I was working on this project. Came over to the house, and we were going through her records, and she was reminiscing on almost every record that she was pulling and going through. And I would be like, hey, play, you know, play a couple, let's play a couple. And she would tell me like, Natalie Cole? Am I right? Natalie Nicole,
Yeah.
right? Nat King Cole's daughter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. She pulled the record. She's like, oh yeah, this song is when, you know, I met your father, and then she would pull Marvin Gaye. Oh, this is like, you know, a deep tone, and I was hoping she was gonna pull Sade and say, this is when I had you.
you were conceiving this.
I was hoping that. My mom loves Sade, but then I was like, it didn't make sense. Sade, no.
Sweetest taboo.
But there's a moment, and it was the center page of the first book. There was a moment she pulled the War album, and she held it, and this is what was very special to me. And I said, this is like my Shelby. She was breaking down the times of that era, and you know, she was like, this is when Black, Brown, Chicano people, this was the music that helped us escape during the times of protest and movement.
Beautiful.
And she was all, if you were at a party and they didn't have this record, you needed to go to another party. And I was like, damn. And all this time that I'm talking to her, I'm snapping her. She doesn't know. She knows I'm snapping her, but she doesn't know I'm snapping her.
It's caught in the.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I would say that's the one.
Beautiful. Thank
Dude,
you for that.
that was a good one.
Great story.
Good stuff.
Man, it just shows that you're not only you know, a great friend, great creative, great son, a great member of our community, and we are only more so blessed because you decide to continue to stay in this city, contribute to this community, and make it very important to be genuine in that work, because if anything, I think many of these people in this place right now, and I see you all, that our work as creatives, but genuine creatives, gives us something to be proud of.